The NBA draft is tomorrow, and of course, with the big night right around the corner, all of the top prospects and the biggest names are the ones that will be dominating the headlines. Guys like Victor Wembanyama and Scoot Henderson will be the talk of the town, and obviously, the teams with the first few picks are over the moon about being able to land guys with their talent. But the real test for front offices is trying to find diamonds in the rough later on in the night, and that's exactly what I'm here to discuss right now. In this video, we'll be discussing 5 prospects that I believe are the hidden gems of this year's draft class. These are players expected to be drafted in the second round or may even go undrafted, but I believe they'll carve out productive NBA careers. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but I also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. The first hidden gem in this year's draft we'll be discussing today is Jaime from UCLA. Jaquez has been a popular name in college basketball for a few years now, and his emergence onto the national scene came in 2021 when he helped lead his 11-seed UCLA squad all the way to the Final Four. He put himself on the map, and had he declared for the NBA draft back then, there was a decent chance he would have been selected in the first round, but he chose to return for another season to try to boost his draft stock, and unfortunately the opposite occurred. Now he's a 4-year player who is expected to go in the second round. He's disappeared from the spotlight, and he lands on this list today because this is a classic case of an older prospect getting slept on because of his age. Then, surprise surprise, they get to the NBA and prove to be pretty productive. Jaquez has incredible footwork as a 6'6" wing, and as a scorer, he's as fundamentally sound as it gets. Nowadays, scouts love guys who have long wingspans or guys that can run really fast and jump really high, but the skill of just knowing how to play basketball continually proves to be underrated, and Jaquez is exactly that. He utilizes fakes and pivots as well as anyone, he's very strong and uses it to bully smaller defenders, and he has good touch at the basket. The one thing that he needs to improve is his three-point shooting, because he shot below average from deep 2 seasons in a row, but as a 77% shooter from the free throw line, he's got a solid stroke and there's clearly upside there with him. The next hidden gem from this year's draft that we'll be discussing today is Kris Murray from Iowa. Last year, around this time, the basketball world was ready to welcome Kris's brother Keegan to the NBA, and his arrival came with quite a bit of hype as he was selected in the top 5. However, Kris this year is not receiving nearly as much attention. Now, I'm not going to say that Kris is going to be as good as Keegan at the next level, however, the fact that he's being projected as a borderline first-round pick who might slip into the second round does make him pretty underrated. Kris may not have the same level of upside that his brother has, but his floor is still at a level that projects to be a really useful player in any rotation. As a 6'8" forward with defensive versatility and 3-level scoring, he could excel alongside any kind of star talent and play a secondary role beneficial to the team's goals. The NBA today is desperate for more players with good size, length, and defensive talent that can immediately make an impact, and Murray is coming off of a season where he averaged 20 points per game on top of it all. He may not be an elite shot creator off the dribble, but he's not going to have to be, because he's not going to be expected to be a star or a go-to guy in the NBA, and in a secondary role, he is very good as a cutter, slasher, finisher inside, and a spot-up shooter. The next hidden gem we'll be discussing from this year's draft is Imani Bates from Eastern Washington. Bates has been a pretty controversial talent in the basketball world for a few years, and all of that turbulence now sees him entering the draft projected to be a second-round selection at best. Bates was one of the top-rated recruits in his class entering college, but since then has experienced way too many ups and downs for some to be able to handle. He's transferred schools, he's found himself in some legal trouble, and his play has been erratic, but yet despite all of that, there's undisputed talent there that could be worth taking a swing on, especially at this price. He's a 6'8" wing with unlimited shooting range off the dribble, even with a hand in his face. He's demonstrated an ability to take and make difficult shots, including fadeaways, step-backs, and one-legged off-balance jumpers, and while those are the kind of shots that are typically ill-advised, more often than not, having them in your bag mag can come in handy. As a spot-up shooter, he also made nearly 40% of his threes in those catch-and-shoot situations, so if a team can reel in his shot selection and get him good looks off the ball, he's a good enough shooter to capitalize. I'm not here to say that he's going to become the star that many thought he could be a few years ago, but if he buys into a new role on a team where he isn't the go-to guy, then he can legitimately help, because he's more naturally gifted than any other prospect available in the second round. The next hidden gem we'll be discussing in this draft class is Keonte Johnson from Kansas State. Kansas State stole the hearts of many during this year's March Madness tournament when they made it to the Elite Eight, and while point guard Marquise Noel stole the show, Keonte Johnson was equally as important to that team's success. Johnson's got the size and strength that makes him ready to handle the physicality of the NBA game right away. He's a very good spot-up shooter, making about 41% of his threes total and 45% of his threes in spot-up catch-and-shoot situations, and defensively, he works best in schemes where you can switch everything, because he can compete on ball against multiple different positions. Johnson is another player projected to be available in the second round on Thursday because he's got a bit of a loose handle and doesn't really shoot that well off the dribble, but again, when you get this deep in the draft, you're not looking for guys with star caliber upside, you're looking for players that have the skill set to potentially impact the game off the bench, or even in a fifth starter type of situation in a non-dominant way, and Johnson can do exactly that. And finally, the fifth and final hidden gem we'll be discussing today is Ben Shepard from Belmont. Shepard is a draft sleeper to the fullest, as he's from a mid-major with no March Madness experience, so he really doesn't have much national recognition. Shepard showed steady growth every single year in college, including his senior season where he finished up averaging about 19 points per game, shooting the ball 48% from the field and 42% from three. Those may not be eye-popping numbers for a mid-major guy, but they're incredibly steady and reliable, and after getting invited to participate in the NBA Draft Combine this year, he dominated the scrimmage portion of the event there and turned quite a few heads. To put it simply, he just goes out there and takes what's given to him. If he's given space, he'll pull up and knock down the jumper. If the lane opens up, he'll drive, and he's crafty enough around the basket to finish it well. If the defense collapses, he'll find the open man. He's not the biggest, fastest, or most gifted athletically, but he's a very balanced and smart basketball player who knows how to play the game against any level of competition. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below who you think some of the hidden gems in this year's draft are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.